That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and you can probably prolong the podcast for 5 hours with a lecture from Jean-Claude Tawil.
It's a tough one for Thursday morning. I think when you look at companies that are successful in North America, they have a good technical approach, and they are able to attract customers by showing their capabilities and almost targeting customers that they believe they could do well with.
Hello and welcome to the Gold Casting podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Jean-Claude Tawil from DynaTool. Welcome to the podcast.
So hello, my name is Jean-Claude Tawil. Thank you guys for having me on the podcast that I watch regularly, obviously. Very happy to present DynaTool Industries and myself. I've been in the die casting industry for well over 30 years in different markets, different segments, different alloys as well. And DynaTool Industry is a company based in Montreal with manufacturing capacity in Canada, Asia, and soon we will be adding our US capability. We'll be announcing that shortly. And we are one of the first, if not the first, reel casting company using ComTech technology in North America with some excellent inroads and some great market development going on right now.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for your introduction. And I think we can really just jump it, especially as you had in your introduction, you're also in Canada and now starting up in the US. Is there the market a bit different for both companies or just moving next to your customers?
I think part of it is moving closer to the customers, and it's also opportunities that we see in the US market where that being located in the US will give us an advantage, and we'll also be able to grow our technical expertise in reel casting and in high pressure die casting as well. So we feel it's a good, an important market for us to be in.
But given the fact that you are operating pretty much all around the globe, how would you say the US market differs from other markets? I mean, you have the sense from Asia, you know us in Europe, and you have a longer history with European companies as well.
So there's currently a little push we see for Buy American to have products that are made in the US. There's a lot of subsidies available also that the US makes available for different market segments. And so we see that really as an opportunity, as an additional opportunity to help us grow the business and get closer to our customers. I think that's one of the things a lot of companies would like to localize production a little bit more. So we have customers that'll obviously stay in Asia, and we're making a push to look at Vietnam as part of a potential region for the future. We're in Taiwan and in China currently. So we still believe
let's drill into it a little bit. Why do people want to move in and have a US casting for US production? Is it just of nationalism or is it driven by I don't know, tolls, customs, taxes, something else?
I think part of it is definitely the newer NAFTA agreement that was put in place. There's some advantages for customers to localize in the United States, and there's that gives them an ability to have content between Canada, US, and Mexico and meet the requirements. I think also part of that, given what happened with the COVID periods, people want second sources that are closer. They want to be able to have more than one supply base. So that's something that's driving this as well.
It's interesting you mentioned a new NAFTA agreement. So what changed? Can you give us some details?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not an expert on the NAFTA agreement, but I know that the content requirements did change. So the content requirements for a motor vehicle that is manufactured in North America requires a little bit more US content than it did before. The content in Mexico has to be based on certain revised labor requirements. I don't think what happened in what affected Canada changed significantly. But again, I'm not an expert on it. I know there's some content changes. The other part that is interesting is given the push towards EV in North America, the US government has subsidies available for those markets, and anything that is like, I guess, considered sustainable or green. So that's an opportunity. Companies are taking advantage of that. I've had some EMS companies that have reached out to us saying they'd like to do a program in the US because of these subsidies instead of Thailand. So yeah, it's quite interesting. It's a very fluid situation currently. Mm-hmm. There's a lot happening with different customers and different markets. It's hard to follow sometimes.
And it's supposed to elect a new president.
Yeah,
year,
so that's
right?
happening also in 24. I had a colleague that mentioned to me that in 2024 is the year that almost 60 key countries in the world are having elections. And yeah, we'll see. Should be interesting.
Yeah. So do you see that many companies try to establish their US or in general NAFTA base before the election, before something can change? Or is it basically just, oh, there is a general change in the conditions, it's now more interesting to be within the NAFTA market?
Yeah, that's a good question, Fabien. I don't think anybody is accelerating their decision making based on what I see. I do believe that Mexico and the US are getting a lot of interest from companies that are in Asia and also companies that are in Europe to be able to have that footprint and be in North America. I think that's a reaction probably to risks or concerns about potential future tariffs and things like that.
There you go. Interesting. But since you work around the globe, JC, I mean, you're a globetrotter. We saw you in Germany just last week, a few weeks before Christmas. You were actually wheeling in Sweden, of all places, cruising around. With that experience, if we talk a little bit about the culture changes and differences, not changes, differences between, let's say, US OEMs and European OEMs, what do you say is the biggest difference? Or are they just the same?
It's become a lot more global than it was before. I remember working for a company in Europe, and the European OEMs had a different approach, completely different than the North American companies did, the big three as we call them. I think that's become a little bit closer than it was before. I think both OEMs, both markets manage the supply bases in a similar way. I think it becomes more of a customer culture than really regional in some instances. But obviously, if you're working with a Porsche versus a General Motors, I imagine that you know there's a difference in how they will approach their supply base and what they share and how they work. It's hard to define exactly. If I look at our customer base, we have a good telecom presence, and we work with some other companies that are in Asia and in Europe as well. And we do see some differences. It's a lot easier to get information here in North America than it is with the counterparts in Europe sometimes, and with the ones in Asia as well. So it seems to be a little bit more open. I don't know if it's because we are also North American and we have a closer relationship. But it seems to be a little bit easier back and forth, and that helps us in our business, obviously.
Or maybe
And I
just
have-
the new
that-
players help to open up that market, as you see that like Tesla,
Yeah.
Lucid, Rivian, they have a different working culture. Or do you see something that tripping over to the bigger or the established OEMs?
The EV, the newer EV players like Rivian, Lucid, and Tesla, the ones I have experience with, a lot more open. They are a lot more different approach. Open, interested in improvements, interested in better product ideas, interested in design changes if it improves their cost and their product offering. So that's very different than the OEMs typically.
Would it be far-fetched to say that Rivian, Lucid, and the newcomers are more like the telecom companies when it comes to the approach to lead time, speed, product development, openness for changes?
Yeah, interesting, Stefan. It's a good point. It's both of us have a little background in telecom, and you see a certain closeness to the telecom mentality, where it's very fast, very quick, a lot of revision changes, a lot of product updates, whereas the OEMs, specifically here in North America, a little bit slower. Product development takes more time. Yeah, very, very much so. It's a good observation.
But if I were a young guy, let's say 25, oh, that's almost 30 years ago, when I had hair, all that stuff. And I was sitting there, the day after exam, the champagne on my suit has dried up a little bit. I'm getting sober, and I would start to think that, on Monday I need to start work. How about going to the US or North America? If you picture that situation, you're pretty young and fresh. How would you address this? Where would you start? Yeah, it was a few years, I know.
It was a few years.
I mean, as a experiment of thought, where to start and to have an interesting occupation within the casting industry or casting spear, to put it that way.
I guess I'd be a little biased, and I'd try and I believe very much in what we're doing at DynaTool with Rio Casting, and I believe that's an excellent opportunity for the high pressure die casting industry to be better and to have a better product offering than currently. So if I was a young engineer and I was looking at the casting industry, I would look at specific processes or specific product offerings where I could get involved in. If we talk about giga castings, that's the latest thing, obviously, and that's something that's extremely interesting. And that could be something that for a young engineer to get involved in, there's probably a nice market growth and development that's going to happen over the next 10 to 15 years. I don't think it's going to disappear. So,
but as you specified, so you would pick something specific, which is the cutting edge of the technology, to be there as a starting point. And that's something that I think we all know is going to grow over the next few months or years. But do you see the market in general, that if you, for example, weren't the best student and also your English isn't too good and you try just to get a place somewhere, do you see the market in general moving up as well, or is it just these islands of technology?
So I would recommend that someone finds the right company to work with to begin, and to find a company where they're going to learn, and that they have a good boss that they can work with, and that boss is open to them and shares information, makes them, grow, because it's their first job, their first opportunity. I think that would be the first important thing. The second thing, and in response to your question, Fabienne, I think I don't see the high pressure die casting market growing per se if it is not for these specific technologies like giga casting, Rio casting. I don't see it growing significantly, and that's a concern for me, especially here in North America. We should really find a way with the aluminum industry to push this technology and to put it more at the forefront than it is right now, because people don't know high pressure die casting.
I had to try one thing. I started to cruise around North America checking die casters out in the first one was 1996 actually. And in my belief system, US high pressure die casting on some kind of average were lagging behind Europe. I saw people that, with a big spoon hand carry material alloy into a 400 ton and then close and push the bottom and then out come it was lagging. I didn't see any robots and stuff, and then I think this continued for a while, maybe beginning of the 2000s, but then so it was on a lower level. Now I see that they are leading pretty much. I mean, the giga casting was invented by Mr. Musk, right? We see also some other very interesting applications growing very fast. And another argument for what I'm trying to get to is that, to speak 1 second about technology now, Fabian, real casting's best market is actually North America. And that draws me to the conclusion that in North America, you can be declining, but you're faster to get out of the problem. You're faster to take decision and to condense it. You're not afraid of making trials with different new things in North America. Whilst in Europe, it is a discussion club, more or less. Very much so in very many companies. I mean, they've been working with us for 5-6 years now, and maybe we do a tryout next year. And they're getting there, but they are getting there so much slower than the North American OEMs, even if it's the old newcomer Tesla or someone else in the EV segment, or if it's one of the big three. So my question is, after all this blah, 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 is it true that people are more open to try new things in the US than in Europe?
I would say that the US market, specifically the die casting industry, typically it's always been very conservative, but they do look for technology. And if they find a technology that significantly improves their business, they will try it and they will allocate dollars to do it. I think that is something that's always been in my experience in North America. And why I say North America is being Canadian. We've had some really great Canadian die casting companies over the years. We have Meridian that developed so many applications on the magnesium side, and very interesting companies that were involved on the automotive side and telecom as well. But I think there's an openness to try to improve your business here. I don't see it, in my experience in Europe, it was a little different. Companies were very focused on what the customer requirements are and the specifications. So if they had to change something, very often they wanted to get OEM involvement and approval. Whereas in North America, companies are willing to try, see if it works, and then see if they could get the approval once they have something to show.
So what you're saying that in the US you do a practical test and then you have a practical proof of concept. In Europe we go for an academic pre-study and then involve the customer.
Also, I think I would like to add to your question, Stefan, that in Europe you usually see if you bring in new technology and present it to the OEM, you're usually forced to give up 150% of the profit you make with it and teach your competitor how you do it because there's no single sourcing allowed. Is it a different approach in the US?
I don't think that part is much different. I think the customer base, the OEM would like to always wants you to share some cost reductions with them. And if you bring in something to improve, that's part of the process. I don't think it's as black and white as you mentioned, Stefan. That's okay, it's more theoretical in Europe. I think it depends on the companies. There's some companies in Europe that are probably more open to trying, and they'll maybe be market leaders when they decide, hey, we're going to go in that direction and try it. Or they may fail and learn something from it and develop or work on something else. I just think in North America there is a little bit more of a drive for implementing processes that improve your ability to be profitable, and that drives some change sometimes. But I still think it depends on the customer, and it depends on the manufacturer.
But bottom line is, if you have a novelty, if you have something that you think could go and grow very big, that could be important for the automotive industry or the casting industry, it would probably, from this top level, be better to develop it and sell it into the market in North America than in Europe.
I think the North American market would probably benefit from it more than the European market, because the European market is a little bit more mature in some technologies already than we are in North America, even though there's some great companies here that have adopted very similar capabilities. But I think there's still a lot of mom and pop companies in the U.S. and in Canada that would benefit from some of these improvements. Yeah.
Total AutoScript. Kind of interesting thought. In this podcast, we are having a theme saying that when a die caster is running a marketing campaign, he moves the telephone a little bit closer to his body so he can respond a little bit quicker. Meaning, they're pretty useless, many companies, when it comes to marketing and sales, which is a big pity. I kind of get intrigued when you said mom and pop die casters. They're super skilled. They know a lot of things. They're experts in uptime and all these things. But when you, with your experience, look at the die casting industry and think about marketing and sales, I mean, you're obviously very successful. DynaTool is a successful company. You're making money, you're growing, you're doing a lot of fun stuff. What would you say is the biggest difference between the growing company and the not growing company within the die casting industry?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and you can probably prolong the podcast for 5 hours with a lecture from Jean-Claude Tawil.
It's a tough one for Thursday morning. I think when you look at companies that are successful in North America, they have a good technical approach, and they are able to attract customers by showing their capabilities and almost targeting customers that they believe they could do well with. The ones that are less successful are more, the wait and see type of companies. They do business with one or two companies, OEMs, they're happy, and they're going to wait for that business to just develop and then to get other requests for quotes. They're not going to do a more, in-depth marketing plan or a sales plan or a strategic review to see where they are positioned in the market and how they can grow their business and what they need to invest and so on. They're going to focus on what they do. They have so many machines, and they push metal at a certain level, and they have happy customers, and they make a little bit of money, and they may be happy with that. And some other companies are a little bit more focused,
It's nothing wrong. I mean, if you look at these, they have been provided for 3, 4, 5 generations.
It's great.
Many of them.
Yeah.
We kind of need it, but they are probably not pushing technology into the EV future. Let's put it.
I think in general, if you look at North America, and I would say probably U.S. and Canada, Mexico has a couple of shows that really showcase the die casting industry, high pressure die casting in Mexico, and bring in customers and bring in suppliers and technical schools. I think we miss that in the US and in Canada. We don't have that. We have some shows which, certainly the suppliers are able to bring in new technology and what they do, and there are some technical discussions, but it doesn't bring the customer in. It doesn't bring the end user in. It doesn't show the general public what high pressure die casting is and how it's used in so many different everyday applications. So we need to do that, and I think if we do that, a lot of die casters will change their marketing approach. It'll be a little bit sexier than it is today.
So it's also that they have to visit different exhibitions, not the usual high pressure die casting or die casting exhibitions. So visiting the exhibitions where the customers are.
Exactly. Yeah, that's important.
I think in Europe we have the problem that many companies have had filled order books, but then energy prices and other costs have taken down the profit levels to dangerous low. And what we're looking now is a downturn, according to some people at least, in the German car production and European car production, several notches. We also see now that BYD and some other players are entering the market by announcing car manufacturing factories now in Eastern Europe. Do you see something similar in the US? Do you see any Chinese car makers going to US, starting companies, assembly plants in 2024?
I'm not as close to the automotive market as I was in the past. I do know there's a lot of Chinese based suppliers that are setting up in Mexico and in the US right now. And I do know that BYD is one of the larger car manufacturers in the world, and they are looking obviously at the US markets to be able to bring in some electric cars. So that's going to have an impact. These Chinese suppliers are trying to also make sure they don't have tariffs, they don't have any barriers to market. So they're closer, and obviously their cost base will be different, but they still bring capacity to the market, and I think that's going to have an impact, want it or not, on the current industry here and on the current companies, because a lot of companies do not invest enough in technology and in processes, and they they run a facility with more or less poor housekeeping, poor technology, and it's just pushing metal, and that's difficult. It's difficult to stay in business long term and to grow your business if you're doing that nowadays.
So what you're saying nowadays, it's not enough to have a die-cast machine and nice uptime. You also have a technology development in some sort, or a customer service in a level that makes you to be the chosen one.
Yeah, I think you need to, keep with the times in terms of technology, and you have to automate more. You have to know what you're doing, understand your cost structures, and yeah, it's a little different game. So, and you're competing globally, and you're going to compete globally with the company that's next door to you, that is also a Chinese company potentially, or a Mexican company. So you have to be on your toes to stay in the game.
So
I think the biggest problem
comes back down to another theme we had a lot of times, is that it comes down to the people that are employed at pushing the company forward. Is that something that to say, okay, many foundries miss these people that have a high skill level pushing the companies forward?
Yeah, I think it depends. I think some companies have good people. I think most companies have good people. I think it's more related to the fact that the industry itself does not maybe retain or attract a certain level of capability and know-how sometimes, and it stays at a lower level because we're not, I'll say it again, we're not promoting high pressure die casting. I mean, we don't have schools that I know of. There's a couple of universities in Canada and the U.S. That do push. They have a process for metal processing and for high pressure die casting, but it's not visible enough. And as an industry, I think we do a poor job in North America to push high pressure die casting.
In Europe, we see a problem that all these mega casting projects are kind of vacuum cleaning up all people that knows anything about large structural castings. Do you have the same problem in North America, US?
Yeah, the same thing. You get a lot of requests on LinkedIn and a lot of comments from people. Do you know how do you know die casting? What's the largest machines you've worked with? And yeah, so that's a risk as new people come in. If you have a team in place, obviously you want to make sure your team is in place and you don't lose key individuals to that. But that's the risk.
And if
right?
you look, if you look at the mega casting project, I mean, buying a couple of guys extra to reduce the risk of not being successful is quite a small cost in comparison to the older machines, equipment, and the risk of not delivering those 60 pieces an hour to the assembly line.
Yeah.
So I
a
can
little
understand the
investment.
reasoning from the OEM. Yeah, I can understand the OEMs, but what we see here is that a lot of people are just they go like with a vacuum cleaner, and they pick them. They need spray experts, tool experts, casting experts, alloy experts, whatever expert they can find, and hopefully 2 or 3 of them, because one guy could be wrong. If
Yeah,
you have 3
especially
people,
then there's also the revolving door principle. If someone doesn't bring what they promised, they throw them out again.
Yeah.
Especially what you mentioned for the S market, there's one stereotype that is quite strong in Europe, that Americans or general are quite a lot of job hopping. Oh, there's a better opportunity, I jump on that. So is these technology people sucking them up, is that something that is a bigger problem in the North American market from your point of view?
Do you mean the jumping around from one
Especially
place to
if
another?
there's these giga castings and making a lot of marketing for that the people that are knowledgeable within your company or within the companies in general, that they are more likely to jump to these big OEMs with the large machines.
Oh, sure. That's certainly a risk. There's also the a generational change going on, right? I mean, we're Stefan and I are from the same generation, and we would pick a job and stay there, for life, pretty much. I think, Fabian, your generation is a little bit different. You guys are more, I guess, you're more open to changing, and you don't have that same level of concern that we did when we were younger. We wanted to find something and stay there and grow within that business. So I think people change. Yeah, they'll go to another company if there's an opportunity. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, okay, I'll find something else. So.
Yeah, they're not. The patience is limited. I think another aspect of this with the generation shift is around technology. Because if you look at the old guys, they hardly believe in a simulation. I know simulations could be discussed and debated, but if you look at the a casting 10 years from now, I bet you we will have better and better simulations, more and more sensors, more and more, I don't know, machine learning, for example. And I think it's a need of a generation shift, because guys that are now coming out there being 25 years from university, yeah, they might lack of experience. They haven't burnt their fingers that much on molten metal or hot metal at all. But they have grown up in a world and a universe where you actually extract enormous amounts of information to filter out the essence and then actually to make it useful for them. And I think this is a key thing for many founders that want to stay sharp, stay ahead of development. It's actually to employ more young people just out of that reason. Then you can laugh about them when they burn their fingers the first week. But it's easier to learn not to touch hot metal than to learn how to operate a more advanced computer system.
Are you saying for us or for someone that's younger?
I'm still burning my fingers. I haven't been taught correctly, but I think this is a key success factor for the future when you actually put a team together to have a bunch of young people when it comes to where development is fast, process control, simulations, machine learning. In a few years, it will come. It will hit the die casting industry in many aspects. And if you don't have a team that can embrace those novelties and actually take advantage of them, then I think you have a problem. That's my theory.
Yeah.
I don't know what the rest of you say, but I think it's important.
Yeah, it's definitely important also that there's way more communication than it used to be. That it's not like, oh, that nozzle is blocked, that's the job of the spray manager, but I don't tell it to him, and then when the casting's up, I can blame it on him. And there needs to be these cross-functional teams working together, bringing all the competences in, especially as the castings get bigger and way more complex. How should one person alone say, just by hearing it, that the left slide at the 130th from the 200 jet coolers is not working properly? Impossible to do. You need so many more people having to look at the same casting from different angles.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very important to have that ability with the team to look at the issues and to understand the technology you use. And I mean, simulation is it's vital. I can't believe that you would work without a simulation, or you would do a simulation and then not understand what you're looking at, and still kick off a mold. Die casting used to be looked at as medieval to a certain point. When I started in the industry, it was what kind of foo-foo dust you put into to the furnace to make a good part, and we're not there anymore. We understand the process parameters and what it does, and we have the ability to follow all these requirements and adjust accordingly and be able to make a good casting. But like you said, Fabian, I think communication is key, and it's also understanding what you're doing and understanding the technology. That's very important.
Also getting the consistency in, that the first casting has the same quality as 3 molds down the road, 500,000 castings later, just the quality is still the same.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll start over my small thing about this with software and try to explain it in another way and see what you guys think about my theory. It goes like this. Everybody is making a giga casting or a mega casting. Sorry, Bühler. That means that they are pouring tremendous amount of money in development to be sure, from a risk mitigation perspective, that every casting that leaves that tool is sound and comes, 14 hours, 16 hours, right? So that's the baseline. Someone is pouring money on an industry in a specific corner. What I'm saying is that it will be a development of softwares for simulation, machine learning, process control. I mean, heck, they have like 250 to 200 jet coolings in one slider for a rear floor, right? Someone has to keep track of all this. A computer is much more efficient. That development will lead to these better simulation softwares and softwares in general. And that will start to drip down to the next level, meaning the shock tower guys, the carbon dioxide pump housing guys, all the guys that are doing quite complex parts where you have to have a high quality out there before delivering to your customer. So the big ones will be the first to embrace it. I'm thinking about the big foundries, okay? But what I'm saying also is that the smaller guys that are looking for an opportunity on the market, that put the air on the rail and listen into this and embrace it as soon as it gets there available, or actually for a beta version to be a development partner, they will actually be a little bit better. They will be more positioned to grasp the market and do complex parts. So I think this could be a success factor in the future. The dripping down of novelties that are fueled by the gigacasting industry and paid by the OEMs.
Also, I think it wouldn't be a very bad idea just to develop such a complex interconnected system just for, I don't know, 1,000 high pressure die casting machines worldwide in the giga casting sector, and then not have the trickle down effect and sell it to the other 100,000 foundries or die casting machines out there. Would be quite a bad development from a cost point of view.
That's happening already. I bet my head, and I kind of think I heard something also. But that's happening. Look at the investment. It is a need. If you can save 5% of the cost, round cost for 10 years, imagine the pile of money.
Also, it's not about saving the cost. It's about the capacity. You can produce different parts. So it's not only the cost you have to remelt. It's also the opportunity cost that's on top from the castings you could have casted while doing the scrap grade.
Exactly. And we have been speaking about uptime and low labors in this industry for what, 30, 40 years, for stupid parts. Who is actually buying stupid parts and what amount in the future? You have to pivot somewhere. And if you are to pivot into something else, you'll find yourself around the electrical engine housing. It should be leak tight. It could be a carbon dioxide pump, which should be leak tight. I see new shock towers that are thinner and bigger, and they are actually casted, both of them now, with some kind of interconnect. To get these parts with a process window like a stamp to be profitable in the foundry, I would take all help I can get.
Also, with the stupid parts, you just have to run them because all the capacity and brains are needed at the complex parts. So there is no room to go there every week and have a new customer complaint you have to work on, because then you're very fast out of business.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're off script, so it's crazy. But imagine 2 years from now, if we now are looking at the downturn and the big OEMs have spent billions and billions on new electrical vehicles. What is the first thing an OEM does when he sees the downturn is there? He launches a saving program. Who is to pay on the saving program? The suppliers. And there you go. So then the uptime is important, and how do you actually reach it for very complex parts? You know what you're doing. You have data, not feeling. It's a data-driven thing and not a feeling thing.
And that's where AI comes into that discussion.
Yeah.
We have a lot of companies using that as modeled AI models to be able to look at their data and understand what they're doing. So and come up with solutions. We have a person on our team who knows absolutely nothing about high pressure die casting, but he knows data. And we gave him that task as a fun project, and it was amazing some of the things that he pulled out of that. So by using an AI model and just using the data that we were driving with our process, it was very, very interesting.
Amazing. Did you already implement the project and could see the benefits in real production?
Yeah, we're trying to make sure we have the right AI model to be able to properly predict what we would like to do in terms of the process, and that's ongoing. We put some money towards that, and I think it's important. And we have someone who's very passionate about it and knows, like I said, absolutely nothing about high pressure die casting, but that's what's fantastic about it. He has a fresh view of it and a fresh approach. Yeah.
So what you're saying, you employed a guy who is good in AI, knows nothing about die casting, and he's telling you that have 35, 40 years experience, in the industry, things that you didn't know about your own production.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of gives me an evidence that I'm on the right track in my head, at least.
Yeah, I think so.
Was it complicated to get going?
Not really. I mean, he took a RioCast part that we produce, and he just took a lot of different data points from the process, and he put them in a model that he felt was useful, and was able to come out of that with a little bit of a prediction to say, if these 10 parameters are all within this level, you should be able to make 100% good castings.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And, yeah.
So basically, his salary is paid by himself. So it's basically a free labor worker getting in your foundry if you have someone that knows AI and can implement it with your data.
Yeah, it's fun. He likes it too, and it's for us. It gives us a tool potentially that will help us, like simulations, because to me there's not one magic bullet. It's understanding your full process, and like a simulation, like understanding how manage your tool temperature, how and for us reocasting, which is part of our mentality and our values. So taking all of that with a potential AI model and coming up with a solution that is efficient and works.
Is it far-fetched to say that one of your successes is the combination of reocasting and AI?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we're there yet. Reocasting is definitely part of our success, but AI is developing. We're trying to understand how to use it, and we're trying to understand what it can do for our business. So we're just at the start.
And I try this and revolt back to one of the first questions about the young guy going to the US and what to do. I mean, you kind of more or less told us that you believe that it would be a great future if such a person goes in and start to learn about machine learning as a start position, more or less, as that will probably be the future.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. But I think to have the full view, the full picture, what Fabian mentioned about having a good cross-functional team, I think is key, and having that ability with new technology, AI potentially, you need the full package, and then you can.
Yeah, sure. I mean, having AI without anyone that could control your melt hygiene and all that will still be a bad process. But it's so thrilling, it's so interesting, because we pour that metal during 40, 50, 60 milliseconds into a block of steel. And then I find so many times 5, 6 guys standing around the result with the thumbs in the tool and try to explain to each other why it's a bad casting. And all of a sudden, we start to combine all the different factors in a way that maybe we can see trends. Maybe we can trend it and actually adjust before we have a bad casting. Picture that.
Well, that's I know companies that have done that in the past with elaborate Excel spreadsheets and other ways of database management. I think AI gives you just another tool in your box to be able to do that.
Do you also think it gives you an advantage over other companies to have AI implemented within your foundry?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, implemented is a big word. We're trying it, and we're liking the results. But I think if you approach it properly, it could make you more successful. You just have to be open to it, and you also have to implement it the right way. I think you still have to understand what you're doing on a die casting level and understand your process very well.
That's a comfort in that, because otherwise we all will be exchanged by computer scientists. Then I would be out of work.
Yeah, but it's hard even to restart the tool to everything running smoothly. I think having all the tools in your toolbox, from the 30, 40, 50-year-old guys doing handmade high-pressure die castings in his teenage years, to knowing everything, together with the ones trying to implement new technologies, together with the ones in AI, putting it all in one pot and making the best casting. I think that's a hell of a combination, and it's hard to beat. I don't know, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's the key. That's the key. There's a lot of people with good experience out there, and it's important to pass that on to the newer generation, and with the current technology, current tools. Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. So 2024, we probably see Jean-Claude Tawil smashing the market even more with AI support, not only Rio casting or gold melt hygiene and all that other stuff.
But then you can come back to the beginning where we said marketing is key, and I think that's excellent piece for marketing. Get your AI-assisted casting.
Yeah. Maybe we need to do a follow-up episode on that.
I think we should actually,
Yeah.
and I can clearly see. I'm thinking too much about marketing, but it's probably most easy to start in California then. Where everybody
weather's
loves
nice.
computers.
Weather is
Weather
nicer
is
than
nice.
here today. I can tell you that. Yeah.
I'm such a bad surfer, but I can eat that lobster and that piece of meat that you call surf and turf, right? I have no problem
Stefan,
with
I
that.
think we can
California
really
rules.
surf to the beach bars. I think that's something we can both do.
I think
That
so.
works.
Yeah, let's go to California for the next episode about AI. I mean, it's February starts this week. Somewhere in October, November, when you're done with AI.
It's an easy flight. Absolutely. Let's do it.
Yeah, for you. I picture myself taking that cab ride I had last week in Germany, from Holland to Germany, trying to take it from Newark to California. That's going to be a thrill.
That's great. Yeah, that'll be a bit longer than from
It'll be a bit
Amsterdam
longer.
to Germany.
Then I need some AI to figure it out.
Yes, no kidding.
Especially you need AI to figure out which pill to take that your legs don't fall off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's still intriguing. I think we should wrap the AI thinking up and be a little bit more cautious about it. I'm speaking out the script here and before doing something, because it could also be some parts that you don't want to talk about.
Yeah, obviously there's a little bit of what we're doing is proprietary, so I just think it's very interesting. Obviously other companies are doing it as well. It's just you have to look at the technology that's available and see how you can differentiate how you approach your processes and market and make an impact.
Definitely. Great. We can talk for hours and hours with you. We were happy to come back when we have more about the AI thing. That's a super interesting project. There are other people playing around with it, and maybe we need to make a special episode around it. But anyway, it was so great to hear some maple syrup poured over the US market from a Canadian perspective. I mean, you know it better than we do. So we're grateful that we had you here today, JC.
Thank you guys for having me. Always a pleasure. Next time I'll bring some real maple syrup for us to all enjoy.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. And thank you for being here, and also thank you for listening in. Don't forget to subscribe, and then we hear us in the next Gold Nugget. Goodbye.